Hello everybody, welcome to another Versus Video Deck Tech. CVM here, joined once again with
BBD.
not Andrew Shrout. And we're playing some sweet standard decks, and I am playing Caleb Durward's Sultai, Sidisi, Whip, Reanimator type deck.
All I saw was that there are 4 treasure cruises in the deck, and I was already hooked.
Yeah, so this is not your standard Whip deck. There are no Hornet Queens, which is usually the reason to play this type of deck as a way to go over the top. Instead, we're using Doomwake Giant to control our opponent's Hornet Queens, and Treasure Cruise to just have gas the whole game and just out-tempo our opponent because they're casting more spells. So we have just like your normal green base for this type of deck with Elvish Mystic, Caryatid, and Satyr Wayfinder. We are on 6 mana guys. A lot of people are playing like 24 lands, 4 mana guys, but Caleb seems to favor 22 lands, 6 mana guys. Honestly, I'm not sure which is better. I haven't played too much with this archetype, but I do love Elvish Mystic, so we're gonna give it a run.
I think 3 Mystic, 3 Caryatid is definitely an interesting choice. It feels like one probably has to be better than the other. Like such that you want like 2/4, 4/2 or something. I'm not sure. Maybe 3/3 is perfect, but it definitely suggests I definitely think that if you played a bunch of games with this deck, you'd come to prefer one over the other.
More than likely. We do have our Corsair Crew Fix. We have the Brood Tyrant Lady herself, old Sidisi. 4 Murderous Cut, pretty standard. 3 Doomwake Giants, 3 Whips. Then we have 2 Eidolon of Blossoms and 2 Commune with the Gods. Normally these are 4 ofs that you would think they would be in these Reanimator / Constellation decks. We only have 2 and 2 here. The reason being, we're not really wanting to... I'm not a big fan of Eidolon of Blossoms, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I'm not either,
It's
actually.
just a 4 mana draw card most of the time. But because we have the Freekas in the main, there are going to be some games where we're just going to get to go ham with Eidolon of Blossoms and Freeka, so it's worth having. But I really like only having 2 and not feeling like you're stuck playing 4.
Yeah.
Now,
also, this deck has Treasure Cruise to refuel. You don't need Eidolon.
Exactly. Now, Commune is a little bit different. I'm kind of surprised there's not more than 2 because you really want to try and find Whip. However, after, watching Caleb play a little bit and listening to him talk about the deck, it feels like Commune is just one of those cards that you like to draw into and cast in the mid game to either find Whip or fuel your Delve cards, but it's not actually essential to the game plan for the deck. So I kind of think that shaving on it could be fine. We're going to play some games and find out. I feel like if I'm wishing that I had Commune more often, we might want to play more, but I think 2 is a good number.
I know from my experience playing these kinds of decks that I kind of hated Commune, so... I actually like a lot of Caleb's choices here. I didn't like Eidolon, didn't like Commune. So cutting on both those cards seems right to me. I think Doomwake Giant's probably so good that a 4th isn't out of the question either.
Yeah. Now, one of the other unique aspects of the main deck is the mana base. So, as you can see here, we only have 4 lands that enter the battlefield tapped, plus an Evolving Wilds, which you can tap for mana if you have an Urborg in a pinch. But there are no temples. So temples are usually... work pretty well with cards like Commune with the Gods and Corsair Crew Fix, but we want to be casting all of our spells on time, and since we have 8 Delve spells, we want to play some extra fetches. So here we've got 4 Delta, a green fetch with Wooded Foothills, and then the Evolving Wilds, and the basics to support them. So for the most part, we're going to be casting our spells either on time or ahead of the curve with our mana accelerants, which I think will end up being a little bit better for us since we don't have like the Scrylands to hit our powerful spells in the mid game. We have Treasure Cruise to make up for it.
Yeah, I've actually, I've played a ton with decks like this over the past year. A lot of different versions of these kinds of decks, and I've played. The more and more I played, the less and less I liked tap lands, to the point where some of my final lists that I was playing for some of these decks had 0.
Yeah.
So I really like cutting tap lands because they're really awkward with your curve. And a lot of times they aren't even that good. Like, scrying isn't always like that, even that great, because you have cards like Satyr Wayfinder and like things like that are dumping cards in your graveyard, and they're really sometimes awkward together. Where you have to play your Wayfinder before your Scryland, but sometimes if you hit an untapped land, you'd rather play that instead, or there's all kinds of things like that where Or, a lot of times you're going to want to be I need a Wayfinder to an untapped land to cast this Treasure Cruise. and then you Wayfinder and it's like 2 opulent palaces, and you're just like, ugh, I wish that was an island or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I definitely really like the mana base for this deck a lot.
Also, a lot of people just don't realize how big of an impact the fetch lands are making along with the scry lands. You are scrying these cards to the bottom of your deck because you obviously don't want to draw them, but then you're having to use these fetch lands to either make your land drops to cast your spells or fuel your delve spells, and you're just shuffling those cards back into your deck. So I feel like it's a little counteractive. It's not such a huge impact that it's going to cause you to lose games instantly, but as you continue to play them over the course of these games, it does make an impact, and I think that anytime you can reduce that, it's going to be good.
Yeah, that's a very good point. A lot of times, back when people were playing like 12 temple decks,
yeah,
at a certain period of time, you're like, well, I've scryed 7 lands to the bottom of my deck this game.
So I got gas coming.
Yeah, I got gas coming. Now it's not really the case anymore.
Yeah. So I definitely am a big proponent of untapped lands and casting my spells on curve. So let's jump into the sideboard and see what kind of options we have in I don't want to say a unique strategy, but this definitely deck is in a different direction than normal. All right, we are back for the sideboard for the Sultai Reanimator deck. And to start, we have 3 Disdainful Stroke, which is just a very good card right now, and it hits a few cards that are just extremely impactful in the matchup. So having a way to answer Whip in the mirror is very good. It's also very good against cards like Elspeth, Siege Rhino that are seeing a lot of play, Pelucranos, Stormbreath Dragon that are also seeing a lot of play,
Butcher Sarkin.
But it's also very good against cards like Perilous Vault and Dig Through Time, which are very important to handle against the blue-black decks. Along the same lines, we have Thoughtseize as just a proactive Disdainful Stroke as a way to take those powerful cards out of our opponent's hands. I feel like this card is much better on the draw than it is on the play because you're going to be more likely to trip up your opponent significantly when they have 1 less card in their hand than you would be otherwise. And it also gives you something to do early on since we don't have a lot of early interaction. We have 3 Nihilist Disciples and 2 Hornet's Nests, which is very good against the aggressive decks, especially the red-based aggressive decks. Mono-red, Jeskai, things like that. These are just very good cards there.
So, I'm not a huge fan of Nihilist Disciple, actually. I actually feel like Drown in Sorrow would probably be better in that slot. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
We already have Doomlake Giant, so we have a Drown in Sorrow type effect and 6 mana accelerants to get to it. I do see a lot of these types of decks using Drown in Sorrow instead of Nihilist Disciple, so I'm not really sure which one's better. I know I was very happy with Disciple in the past. I don't really know, to be honest. Do you think it's, you need the Drown in Sorrow when you already have the Doomlake Giants? You're not boarding out Doomlake Giant against those decks, right?
Yeah, I just feel like sometimes you don't even get to Doomlake Giant. This deck has a lot of fetch lands, and a lot of the early plays are, Satyr Wayfinder, things that don't really impact the board.
Mm-hmm.
I know from that some of the aggressive decks will actually just kill you before you even get there. Or your Nihilist Disciples,
just gain 2 life or 3 life or whatever.
Gain 2 life, die to Lightning Strike, still get hit for 6 the next turn or 8 the next turn or whatever.
Yeah, that definitely has some considerations. Also, it kind of sits on the same spot as Sidisi, where you don't really want to board out Sidisi against those decks either.
Right.
So I definitely could see Drown in Sorrow as consideration. If that's the case, we probably want to play maybe less Elvish Mystics and 1 more Sylvan Caryatid. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they definitely will serve the same role. However, I do like Disciple against Jeskai, where I don't like Drown in Sorrow. So there's a little concession there. It's a little more flexible, I think. With cards like that, I feel like Drown in Sorrow is a more powerful card, but Disciple is going to be a little more flexible.
Yeah, although Drown in Sorrow also can come in against decks where they're relying on Hornet Queen and things like that too, just to supplement Doomlake if you need to.
That's true. We do have a Reclamation Sage for the mirrors. Same reason the green-red deck is going to have it, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Whip, Doomlake Giant, Banishing Light, things of that nature. And then 2 Prognostic Sphinx, which is a unique card. Caleb seems to like it quite a bit. It's just very good at blocking lots of things, and it's very difficult for a lot of decks to kill it. In fact, this card is very good, especially against Jeskai. Jeskai almost has no way to get rid of it, and it's just a very good card against those matchups.
It's also really good against control decks, too. Basically forces a Wrath on its own. Also, one thing that I really like about Prognostic Sphinx in this deck is decks like this get a lot of bad cards in their hand. So, like, you cast a State or Wayfinder when you already have plenty of lands in play. You just have this dead land in your hand. And you can play it, but you could also just sit on it.
Yep.
Or, you commune with the gods and all you find is an Elvish Mystic on turn 7. You can, like, have all these cards in your hand that you just don't care about. Or you draw these mana guys late in the game. Or a second copy of Whip, or all these things that you can just pitch to Prognostic Sphinx very easily.
And it fuels your Delve.
It does, yes.
So that's the sideboard. I think this deck's really interesting, and in fact, I'm considering playing it this weekend in Portland when I travel out west. So let's hop in the games and see how badly Plurkinos can beat me yet again.
Kind of hope it's bad.